Today, witches and vampires take over a modern fantasy lesson. By reading modern fantasy, we can escape into a world that does not exist. I am going to discuss 5 different books that fall into our genre. Do you wish you had magical powers? The first book I'm going to talk about is the Sweep series by Kate Tiernan. Kate Tiernan was born in New Orleans, where she wrote the Sweep series. Tiernan is not Wicca, but she says she can really relate to Wicca and appreciates its woman-centeredness and its female identity. There are 4 volumes to the Sweep series. These books are about a young girl, Morgan Rowlands, who finds out she is a witch. Morgan discovers her heritage, powers, and family origins. She's introduced to Wicca by Cal Blair, who comes to her school as a senior. I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. Until a few weeks ago, I had always believed I was a Rowlands, like the rest of my family. But when I met Cal and began exploring Wicca, it became clear that I had magical powers and that I was a blood witch, from a long line of blood witches, witches from one of the 7 great clans of Wicca. That's how I found out I was adopted. Since then, it's been pretty much an emotional roller coaster ride here at home. And that was from the Sweep series. Do you wish you lived among vampires? The second book I'm going to talk about is the Morganville Vampire series by Rachel Kane. Roxanne Longstreet Conrad, who goes by Rachel Kane in her books, grew up in El Paso, Texas. She quit her job to write full-time, where she writes in a local coffee shop down the road from her house. She wrote 15 volumes of the Morganville Vampire series. The novel features Claire Danvers, a student at Texas Prairie University. She moves off of campus into Morganville, Texas. She notices something odd about her roommates. They don't show much signs of life. While the mayor of Morganville is human, most of the government of the town is actually run in cooperation with a group of vampires. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. Everybody leaves, said Eve. Or at least they stopped showing up, right? I can't believe you don't know this. Didn't anybody tell you the score before you moved in? Look, the vamps run the town. They're in charge, and either you're in or you're out. If you work for them, if you pretend like they're not here and they don't exist, and you look the other way when things happen, then you and your family get a free pass. Then you get protection. Otherwise, Eve pulled a finger across her throat and bugged her eyes out. And that was from the Morganville Vampire series. Do you wish you could turn into a vampire? The third book I'm going to talk about is A House of Night by P.C. Cast and Kristen Cast. The mother and daughter duo write A House of Night together. P.C. Cast, which is the mother, says, I write the draft of an entire novel before I send it to Kristen to rewrite. I don't have to worry about sounding too old or too young. Kristen will fix that. This series is set in a world very much like our own, Zoe Rowlands' world. In Zoe Rowlands' world, vampires have always existed. In this book, in the series, Zoe enters a house of night, which is a school where she has to undergo the change. She will train to become an adult vampire, that is, if she can make it through the change. This novel takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. Then I smelled it. Something smelled amazing, hot and sweet and delicious. Was Heath wearing new cologne? One of those weird things that are supposed to attract women, like a big genetically engineered bug zapper? I didn't realize how close I was to him until he stood up straight and our bodies were almost pressed together. He looked down at me, a question in his eyes. I could only imagine what I must look like, with my face all white, my new mark blazing outlined in sapphire blue, and my eyes staring at the blood on his hand. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. I whispered, I want. And that was from A House of Night. Do you wish you could fall in love with a vampire? The fourth book I'm going to talk about is the Twilight series by Stephenie Meyers. Stephenie Meyer is an young adult writer who was famous for the Twilight series. Stephenie was the best-selling author in 2008 and 2009, and the idea for Twilight came to her in a dream. The dream was about a human girl and a vampire who was in love with her, but he thirsts for her blood. The 4 vampire-themed books cover the life of Isabella Swan, a teenage girl who moves to Forks, Washington to live with her father. She falls in love with a 104 vampire named Edward Cullen. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. Tell me why you hunt animals instead of people, I suggested, my voice still tinged with desperation. I realized my eyes were wet, and I fought against the grief that was trying to overpower me. I don't want to be a monster, his voice was very low. But animals aren't enough? He paused. I can't be sure, of course, but I'd compare it to living on tofu and soy milk. We call ourselves vegetarians, our little inside joke. It doesn't completely satisfy the hunger, or rather the thirst, but it keeps us strong enough to resist most of the time. And that was from the Twilight series. Do you wish you could live forever? The 5th book I'm going to talk about is The Immortals by Alison Noel. Alison Noel has written 21 novels with 8 New York Times bestsellers. She was born and raised in Orange County, California. Judy Blume's books inspired her to become a writer. In the book, a young girl, Ever, gets into a bad car accident with her family, but her family does not make it. She is saved by a magic potion that gives her immortal life. It is Ever's mission to try to undo the spell. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. There are many reasons we don't remember our previous lives when we reincarnate, and what you just experienced is definitely one of them. Sometimes they're just too painful to deal with, too hard to get over. Memories are haunting things. I should know. I've been haunted by more than a few of my own for over 600 years. And that was from The Immortals. And I hope that you're excited to read one of these modern fantasy books. Thank you.